Yo, it's your boy H2O, your potential conditioner, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the New Balance podcast. We are back in the building as promised, and as I always say, we have a special one for you on today. This month, as you know, we're celebrating our sisters, we're celebrating women, just women from all walks of life. And I think it's important for us to stop, take time. You know, Mother's Day is a very, very important holiday for so many reasons. But we understand that all of our sisters, they're not mothers. So I said, we're not just celebrating mothers, we're celebrating women, and we're celebrating the contribution of women. We're celebrating who women are, how God placed them in the earth, they're placing the earth, and how important women are to the whole scheme of life in itself. I have a special guest in the building. We have a doctor in the building. So, they say, hey, when you're sick, call the doc. So there were some things going on. So I called up the doctor and the doctor agreed to be on with us. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's jump in. New Balance podcast, New Balance audience, show some love for our special guest, Dr. Stacy Page. What's up, Dr. Page?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing so good today. It's so good to be on with you. And we're really excited about what's going to take place on today. And I want to share with the viewers a little backdrop as it relates to us. Um, our relationship goes back a long. We went to high school together. Um, I don't want to date. I don't want to put a date on it. I'll be telling our age, right? But let's just say we've been knowing each other for a minute. Not really emphasis on how long I've been knowing Stacy. I really want to put the emphasis on our recent reconnect. And this has been a phenomenal year so far for me personally. And just when you're putting things in place, changes, going through changes and going through new doors, there are always new relationships. And so one day, just doing some things, I came across Stacy's Facebook page. We've been friends on Facebook for a while, but it was something that just drew me to your page. And I began to look on your page and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna reach out to Stacy. Now, mind you, I hadn't seen Stacy in over 30 years. And so I reached out and we spoke initially. I think that conversation was probably about an hour and 30 minutes. And
Mhm.
obviously, when we began to talk, there was a connection there outside of us knowing each other. And that connection is just where we are in life today and the things that Dr. Page has going on. And we're going to get into a lot of that on today. And I told her this privately, but I want to say it publicly. I'm so glad that God has reconnected us. We both agreed that there's some work that she and I will be doing going forward, and I'm excited about it. So, Stacy, Dr. Page, you hear me say Stacy, but Dr. Page. Dr. Page, tell us what's going on. How have you been?
I've been doing well. Just still kind of getting adjusted to all the changes we had to make with the pandemic and going virtual and all that. So I think I'm
Yes,
pretty much kind of over the hill, getting adjusted to all the virtual stuff. But
absolutely.
outside of that, things have been going well for me. Got some new opportunities coming up, so I'm excited about that. I'm definitely excited to be on your podcast today because I've been
Yes,
praying and asking God, to give me some, opportunities to really get out there and speak. And then, you connected with me, and I was like, oh wow, here's an opportunity. So I'm thankful
yes,
for you inviting me here today. So I'm
yes,
excited.
yes. This is going to be great. You have some great things to share. When I think about just some of the things that you've done, wow, Stacy, you have your doctorate of psychology. clinical psychology. You have this organizational management skills. You got your criminal justice degree from Sam Houston. You're a certified life coach. You are an empowerment coach. You're a certified diversity trainer. You're a speaker. You're an author. You're definitely a champion of women. I love that about you. And not only that, you don't see this a lot of times. Not only are you a champion of women, but you're also a champion of men as well. And I really like that about you. We're going to dig in and dive into some of those things on today. But kind of to bring up the audience, even if this is the viewer's first podcast they're watching, we're talking, we call this series the No Epidural podcast. And we kind of started out talking about just naturally women are birthers. You guys have the ability to birth naturally. Your bodies are designed to carry and to deliver. When there's agreement with your body has the ability, and your body possesses the ability not only to nurture something, but all not to, well, let me say this, not to just nurture and grow something, but you can also birth it. Men, we don't have that capability. So you guys are just very unique in itself. So when you think about that in the natural, that same principle is in play when you think about your purpose, right? Um, when we look at the lives of women, women have made so many incredible contributions to mankind, and you continue to make those incredible contributions. But you also have to admit, when you look at the landscape, whether it be in our communities, in our homes, and in our families, you still see a group of women who have not yet touched or have come into the thing that God has for them. And so when you naturally birth a baby, the epidural, it is a help. It's something that can be assistance to the mother to help her birth the baby. Well, when you're birthing your purpose, unfortunately, there's no epidural for that. And I've read all of those great things, all of those great roles that you find yourself doing in life, Stacey. But you can attest, becoming those things and going through those different seasons, there was no epidural. You had to roll up your sleeves, you had to put in the work, and you had to make these things happen. So I don't want women to think it's strange when you're discovering, you're trying to find out what things I should be birthing, what things I should be doing in life. Don't think it's strange when there's no epidural to help you. So this whole month, we want to put under the magnifying glass, like, what does it look like? How does it feel? What is the process? So we have all of these different women from different walks of life. And so today we have this powerful doctor, Dr. Page. I'm gonna do my best to say Dr. Page. I don't know. I like saying it because for me, when I knew you in school. Stacey was a real quiet. She didn't really talk a lot. She was a cheerleader. I remember you being very smart in school as well. And now that you're a doctor now. And so that's a transformation just in itself. And so that's a good place for you to start. You kind of talk about, a little bit of your journey, Stacey. I think it's incredible. You have an incredible story that women need to hear.
Okay. So, as far as my journey, right now I am in the middle of my journey, so it is definitely not complete yet, and that's of course tied to our life purposes. So, it's never complete until God says, "Okay, you're done. You've done
Right.
everything I needed you to do," and then He calls us home.
Right.
So, for me, the journey has definitely not been an easy one. There are people that, they beg to differ and they're like, it just seemed like everything came so easy. And I'm like, it did not. I've definitely had my share of heartaches, pain, tears, doubts, anxiety. It's all there. Um, so I got my start, of course, when I was younger. So mom and dad taught my brother, my sisters, and I, number one, to believe in God, always keep him, first, to say our prayers. And the third thing they taught us was to always work. They were like, you are not going to get anywhere in life if you are not working. They were like, you can pray all day long, but if you're not taking some action, if you're not taking, those footsteps and putting in the time, energy, and effort, you're just not going to get what you're praying for. So my parents taught us to work for, everything we wanted. I mean, it started when I was small. So even if it was just, a doll or extra allowance, some work was tied to it that I had to do. My parents just didn't give it to me.
Right.
So I thank them for that. Of course, I left after I graduated high school, went to college. And I would say from like 18 to 25, that was definitely like a part of my life where I had a lot of growing pains because I was out there, and you think at 18, you know it all, you're just out there,
Right.
not really thinking, just, making a lot of, quick decisions.
Sure.
So I did that, got myself caught up in some situations that I shouldn't have. Then, of course, I had to pray and say, Lord, get me out of it,
Right.
which, of course, He always came through and did. But one thing is, I learned my lessons from a lot of those situations because I'm like, I definitely don't want to repeat them, going forward. So between 18 and 25, just had, a lot of stuff going on, which has definitely helped me later on in life. When I got in situations, I was like, well, back then, this is what I did, but now I got to do something different.
Definitely.
I will say, it's definitely been a challenge getting to where I am today. Just in our society, we know the struggles that Black women deal with. And that's just based on number one, our sex being a female, how we're looked at as, females, and then color of our skin. So I've definitely been in a lot of situations where I had to work harder than the woman next to me that was of a different hue or skin color. Even though, yes, we had the same credentials, the same education, same experience, even in some of those situations, I had more education, I had more experience. There was still some unfairness there. And I know it was primarily just based on the color of my skin. So, with that being said, as Black women, we do face a lot of struggles, and it's only because we are Black women. A lot of times, we're not looked at as equals, among other people or other women. And so we typically have to work much harder. I can just say that for our race in general, even our Black men too. It's like we got to work 10 times harder
Yeah.
than the next person. But the one good thing of it is that we are a resilient race, so most of us know we got to go above and beyond. Somebody else might be able to do, three steps, A, B, and C, and they get it. Well, we might have to do A, B, C, and D, and a little bit extra, before we get there. But one thing is that we are very strong. And so we know that even in doing more, we're still going to get the prize. We're still going to get to the top. We just got to keep working and never give up.
I think, Stacy, just hearing you say that in our conversations, I thought one of the things that was so um, ironic, and that's why it's like life, it's full of growing pains. And when you share with me, I went back to when we were in high school together. Um, you share with me your upbringing, your Christian upbringing, and just say thank you to your parents for that, because even when you went through those trying times, now that it was your upbringing and your faith that got you through those seasons. But one of the things I thought that was so unique in talking about the male and the female perspective is we were in school at the same time, and you were getting this upbringing. I was getting the same upbringing, but yet I was so embarrassed to really share, to talk about, my faith, of being mocked, made fun of. I didn't know what the reception was. Now I did have a few friends who knew, my involvement in church and the things that we did. But I'm so thankful and so grateful that I had it, because when I had that same gap, you said between 18 and 25, if it wasn't for my faith and my upbringing, no way this part of the story that we're here on the podcast together, it can happen. So when you're talking about birthing something, there are a lot of mothers that will tell you the pregnancy did not go just as smooth, right? There was some hiccups, there was some scary moments. And obviously the doctor said, hey, you're going to have to do ABC, to get through this pregnancy. And even during the birthing process itself, sometimes things just doesn't go as scheduled. But because of what you have and what it can get you through those tough times. So when I hear you say that, I couldn't help but think back to when you shared about your upbringing. Do you want to share any of that, about, how your mom instilled those things in you guys growing up?
Definitely. So I was raised by Christian parents. So mom and dad, were saved. And I always remember going to church. There's never not a time I don't remember going to church. Not when I was, living at home between the ages of 0 and 18.
Absolutely.
So um, we were always in church. And so that was one thing that my parents wanted us to know. They were like, if you don't learn anything else in life, you're going to learn about the Lord, because he's going to be the one that is going to help you and that's going to guide you. They were like, yes, we're your
Absolutely.
parents, but
Absolutely.
he's your heavenly father. So they made sure that we were in church. We were engaged in church. So we went to Sunday school. We went to church on Sunday. Sometimes, we had the two services, the
Absolutely.
morning service, and you got to go back to 6, because
Yes.
of course back then, we did communion like on first Sundays in the evening.
Right.
Sometimes, there was programs, so it's like you get out of church at 1 o'clock, you got a 2 or 3 o'clock program, you got to be
Got to
back.
go back.
Yeah, so we did vacation Bible school. I sang in the youth choir. I was an usher. When I got older, I was probably 11 or 12, maybe. I was elected to be the Sunday school secretary for my class.
Yeah.
So I had to do that.
Yeah.
We did all the, yearly holidays, the Easter, play, the
Right.
Christmas play, we did all of that. So, going to church, I mean, we had a wonderful group of adults that really poured into the youth. And I
Right.
remember a lot of that. And like you were saying, it's that, Christian upbringing that really helped us and kept us grounded. Because I will say, had I not had that, I probably would not be sitting here today.
Absolutely.
I definitely, probably wouldn't be a doctor. There's no telling what would have been going on with me right now had I not had my faith and been able, to pull back from that. And of course, when you're a child, I mean, yes, it was fun going to church and all that, but you're kind of thinking, so how is this really going to help me in life? Well, once I got out on my own, I mean, literally by the time I was 19 years old, I'd been away from home about a year. That's when it all came back, and I called my mom, I called my dad, and I'd be like, I need help with this or need help with that. And they'd always be like, well, did you pray and ask God first?
Mhm.
And I was like, no. And so they were like, well, you need to go do that first, see what he tells you to do. And of course, they would give me the advice, but they were like, you got to listen to him because he knew you'd be in this situation. He's got the answer for you. And they were like, we just don't always want you to just depend on us. We want you
Right.
to be able to pray and depend on the Lord. So definitely just having those, Christian principles instilled in me. My parents telling me, open up your Bible, read your Bible, pray,
Right.
go to church. That is definitely helped. And so for me, I would say that's definitely been the foundation for me that I have built everything else on.
Absolutely. And I wanted to spend a little time talking about that. I think it's important um, to share how. Like I said, I read all of those things about you. You don't you don't operate in all these different areas by just happenstance. It has to be something foundational in your life to help you get there. Now, I want to take a turn here, and we're talking about no epidural. I want to talk to viewers who may say, well, that's not my story. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't even have parents, in my life. But yet I hear you saying that, yet I still have purpose. I still have these things. I absolutely say you still have purpose. So Stacey, what do you say to the woman who's watching that says, Stacey, I can't identify with, you growing up in a loving home like that. And you had parents who was there, your family, your siblings, they supported you, and you could call your parents. And obviously you had some some turbulence between those years of 18 to 25, but because of your support system and your foundation, you could make it through. What do you say to that person who doesn't have that, but yet they find themselves looking to walk into or to become who they are? What do you say to that sister that's watching, Stacy?
So for those, sisters that are watching that, they didn't have, that Christian foundation and upbringing, it is never too late to get that. I do not care what age you are.
Right.
And of course, I'm a therapist, so and also a college professor. So I meet a lot of people. They do not have the same upbringing as me.
Absolutely.
I do, of course, let them know I'm a Christian. So when I'm doing therapy, yes, I'm, going to use that Christian perspective, which
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see a lot of people are really looking for that. Even, people that didn't grow up with a Christian background. And so for the ones that don't, I just tell them, number one, it's never too late, to start. I'm like, everybody doesn't get it as a child like we did. So I'm like, it may be later in life that you get it. You may already be in your adult years before you get it. But I'm like,
Right.
it's never too late to start. Wherever you are right now, you can start. Of course, it does start with accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and your Savior. That's
Yes.
the beginning. And then once you accept Him, then you're going to start building your relationship with the Lord. And I've been asked questions, well, where do I start? And I'm like, one, get into a good church, where you can learn, study the Bible, be around other believers.
Yes.
I tell them, definitely start with prayer. And I'm like, God is going to hear your prayers. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, how do I even, start praying? I've never prayed before. And I'm like, the Lord's Prayer, so I'll tell them where, to find it in the Bible. I'm like, you can even just Google it and it's, going to pop up. And I'm like, even just start, with the Lord's, prayer, simple prayer. I tell them, pray the simple prayer, just like you would talk to, one of your girlfriends or, one of your close friends, or mom or dad. I'm like, that's how you talk to God. You just let him know what's on your heart and your mind. I'm like, there's no right or wrong way, to pray. Then I tell them, of course, get into a church because, of course, church is going to have a lot of resources. There's going to be a lot of people there, that can help you out too. And so I tell people just to start where they are. And it is, of course, it's a process, like you were saying. So when you are birthing, of course, you got to go through the whole 9-month pregnancy. And even when it's time, for the baby to be born, you got to dilate and do all that. And then the baby's here. So I tell them to, process and be patient. Don't rush it. Don't think, okay, well, I am now 28 years old, and I'm just starting out, on this Christian walk. So I got to catch up 28 years. No, you don't. Start where you are, because, of course,
Right.
God already knows where we are in life, what's going on with us, what's going to happen with us. And so the key thing is just to start and not think that, you're behind in any way, because you're not. God is always waiting for us to come to Him, and have that relationship with Him. And, of course, He will help us do that.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good advice. Picking up where you are and starting there, letting that be a marker, let that be the marking point right there. And I like having these conversations. I believe there are people who I just want to know, right? I was like, I just want to know if I can get the information. I believe I can turn my life around. I believe I can do the things. I have what it takes to make it there. But a lot of times, because in settings like this, we're so unwilling to share the whole story. Um, we allow people to see us where we are now, and they make the assumption of that's how it's always been, instead of sharing the journey, right? And you said a word that when most people hear it, they either turn the channel or they don't want to talk about it. You said you are a therapist. And we know in our community, there is a huge need for therapy and therapists. So I want you to talk about it from both perspectives, Dr. Page. And I can only talk about my own experience. I remember in life where I'd hit a wall, Was I saved? Yes, I was. Did I love the Lord? Yes, I was. Did I love my wife and my kids? I did. But I was struggling in some areas. Now, was I praying? Absolutely. Was I in the church? Absolutely. I was doing all of those things, but yet I still found myself struggling in some areas. It wasn't until I listened to my wife. I got counseling from my pastors, and my wife was like, "Babe, you need to go. We need to go. Um, I believe it's something that can help you." Now, I'll be honest with you. At first, I was like, "I'm not going," because everything associated with it meant to myself is like, we've been taught that if you do that, something wrong with you. You're crazy, and
Right.
I just could not get over that. But the wall I hit began to have a ripple effect, and it began to ripple throughout my family. And so I needed to do something. So grudgingly, I did go, but I will tell you, please, whoever's looking, whoever's listening to me, I went. It was the best thing that I could have ever done. And the place that I am now, I can go back to my life. That was a marker. That was the beginning. That was a time of new beginnings for me. Even though I was getting spiritual help, there was some natural help that I needed in my life. And so, because I got the natural help coupled with the spiritual help, I was able to make the impact that I needed to make in life. And so, from that point to now, it has been an upward, it's been an upward climb, and it's going to continue to be. And I'll say this: I'm about to start some more therapy. Now, is it necessarily some things wrong or life is just, hey, that's not it. But I know for myself, there are some other things that I need to work on and get better and be better at. And that's only going to happen through therapy, right? So if you could talk about that, your experiences, just some light, just shedding some positive light on it, Dr. Page. You know, it's been, I don't have to tell you, you've heard all of the crazy sayings that we say and what we believe. So if you could talk about that, I think it'll be good to the listener and the viewer from the therapist's point of view.
Okay, so as I stated before, I'm a therapist. So I've been in practice going on 11 years now. So I guess even before I became, I guess, a formal therapist, I was doing some therapy. Just hadn't been to school to get, some more training for it.
Right.
But one of the reasons why I went into the field is because I saw so many people that needed help, especially us African American people. And so initially, once I got out of undergraduate at Sam Houston, I was going to go to law school because I wanted to be an attorney. But of course, I prayed and the Lord changed all of that. And of course, at that time, my backup plan, we make our plans. And of course, the Lord is like, that's not it. So my backup plan was to be a therapist. So I'm like, okay, if I decide not to be an attorney, I'll go be a therapist. But the Lord changed all that. And he said, look, I need you to be a therapist because that's where I need you to help. So once I started doing the research on it, and just looking at the number of Black therapists and Black counselors and Black psychologists we only make up 3%. And it's actually about 2.7. I'm gonna round it up to 3, like 3% of therapists in the world. Okay. And so we have a lot of people in our world that need help. But I was like, wow, those numbers are like really low. There's nobody out there, or not very many people that look like us to help us. So once I started school, I started talking to people, Black people, and most of it was just the stigma of therapy. And of course, we are taught to you take everything to the Lord. So it was like you pray and you take it to the Lord. And I'm like, okay, yes, that's fine. That's great. We definitely need to start with him, and pray. But I'm like, he also puts people on the earth in certain jobs to actually help us. And I'm like,
Yes.
therapist is, one of those people. And for most of us, it's, well, no, we're going to go to the Lord. And like you were saying, a lot of people think, well, if you're going to see a therapist, you're weak and you can't handle your issues. And going to therapy is definitely not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of strength, because
Yes.
it's saying, well, I'm a person, I'm a human. I cannot handle everything on my own. So I need somebody to give me some advice, some guidance, some suggestions. And so when I started talking to, people about, going to therapy, especially Black people, I'm like, don't be afraid to go, because I'm like, we all need help. And it's like if you get physically sick, I mean, if you get, say, a cold, you know, and you're taking the over-the-counter meds, you're taking the NyQuil, you're taking all the Dayquil and stuff, and it's not working. Well, the next logical step is you're going to go to the doctor, okay? Because you're saying, I'm taking the over-the-counter meds, but it's not helping me. I'm not getting better. So you're going to go to the doctor, you make that appointment, you go, and then the doctor may need to give you, something stronger. You need a prescription. You're going to take that prescription for however many days. And if you follow, the directions, take your meds, will you get better? Okay. And so that's how therapy is. It is our way just to help people with their issues. And so most of us, we're therapists, we're humans, we go through our own stuff too. We have therapists. Okay. So it's not to say that we know everything, but we can help you. And a lot of us have been through a lot of things that our clients are going through. So we can relate to it. And I tell people, don't be afraid to go to therapy. You don't have to have anything wrong with you, because a lot of people will say, well, I don't have anxiety. I'm not, depressed.
That's right.
I'm bipolar. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm like, well, no, you don't have to have any type of mental disorder. But I'm like, maybe you're just struggling, maybe in your relationships, and you want to know how to have better relationships, with your family, or friends. Maybe you want to change your career, maybe go into a new field, and you need some
Right.
help there. So I do tell people, nothing has to be wrong for you to see a therapist. You might just need somebody to vent to, that is going to keep your information confidential. They're going to give you, some advice, some suggestions, and just help you. And I tell people that, I'm their guide. I'm like, I'm here to guide you on the pathways of life, give you some suggestions. I will say the majority of the clients that I work with, I don't diagnose them with anything. No, some will have some anxiety, some may have depression, but I don't typically diagnose them because they don't meet all the criteria. And I know one thing, one reason why we are hesitant to go is because a lot of times we are overdiagnosed. We can have that one, anxiety symptom, and next thing you want to know is like they're giving us general anxiety disorder, and it's like, but I only
Right.
have one symptom. And 99% of us, we have anxiety about something, but we're still able to function. So we can't say, well, you have an anxiety disorder, because everybody experiences anxiety at some, point in
Right.
time. And so I think for us, just opening up our minds to therapy, we are still, of course, dealing with the whole, stigma of mental illness and, people coming to therapy. And one thing I'm glad to see is that we're getting out in the communities now and doing the work
Yes.
and letting people know that it's okay to go to therapy. I
Mhm.
actually did a podcast a couple of Saturdays ago, and it was actually with student athletes. And so, they were at predominantly white institutions, and they were
Right.
saying how, it's a lot on them. And they were like, it's really, they really don't care about, like our mental health, but they were taking the steps, to actually go out, and get the mental health, services they needed. So I was really glad to see that, there are, organizations out there, there's people out there that's shedding more light on, mental health, just making sure that we're able to take care of ourselves, because our mental health is connected to our physical health. And I tell people all the
Absolutely.
time, typically when it comes to mental health, it's going to show up as something physical. Your body's off. You just don't feel right. So I'm like, what type of mental health issues are you dealing with? What type of stress? Because that's where it all starts, is with the stress.
Right.
So I do tell people, if you're feeling too overwhelmed, and it's like, you're trying, but just not getting past, that wall, like you were talking about, definitely reach out, and ask for help, because there's plenty of us out there, and we're waiting, to help y'all.
That's good. That's good. It doesn't matter what type of help you need. We have to get the help. In life,
Mhm.
you're gonna need help, and sometimes you need help getting the answer. I know for many of us, we're used to just, I'm gonna come up with the answer myself. I'm gonna help myself, and that's part of life. But to go and to experience the things that are associated with your destiny. They're going to be partnerships. And you have to look at getting the help, whether it be mental health, therapy, whatever it is, you have to look at it as a partner to you becoming a better you, right? And I think sometimes we put such a negative spin on it that we won't embrace it. But when you can look at it, because when I went through it, I was like, man, I could have maybe saved years of my life in just turmoil if I could have gotten this help earlier, right? And it was so refreshing, the help that I received. It's like, okay, this is a game changer, right? Because I don't think anybody wants to just either struggling in a certain area or just dealing with hurt, pain, and disappointment, right? And
Right.
so if you're watching, especially my sisters, man, I don't know any other being. Women, you guys carry so much, so many different areas, things that you guys don't even get to talk about or can't talk about. You know, you have to be the mom, you have to be okay, the wife, you have to be the auntie, you're the grandmother, you know, you're the caretaker, you still have to work, right? You're going to school, you do this, you do that. I mean, it's just so many different hats. And just because of life itself, when you have that many responsibilities, trust me, you're gonna need some therapy.
Yes.
You're gonna need some type of therapy, and it's not a bad thing. So I want to talk about it in a more positive light. Now, Stacy, Dr. Page, Stacy, Dr. Page, when we talked, I thought you shared some things with me that were so incredible. So you're going along this track, and then you get introduced to something in your career where you make a change. So I want you to talk about that because one of my huge passions are working with men and working with men from all walks of life. I have a passion for working with men, you know, men before my generation, men in my generation, and especially men coming behind my generation. So if you could just share some of your experiences, what you've seen, some of the things that you're even doing now, um, you know, in relation to that, you know, being a doctor, I think it really would bring some encouragement, not only to all of the viewers, but I know one thing, our sisters are praying for us, have been, you know, our sisters have stood with us. So share some of your experiences of what you've done, some of the things you're gonna be doing, and how it's impacted you.
So, one of the things that has really impacted me the most in the work that I've chosen to do in this life is just my work in the justice system. And that's where I started out. So when I was at Sam Houston, one of our professors came in one day in class, and this is my freshman year. And he said, before y'all spend all this money on a degree, he was like, make sure this is the area you want to do. He was like, it is, a tough field. You got to be a really strong person. So he was like, I'd advise you to go volunteer or get a job. So me, I was like, okay, well, I may as well, if I'm going to work, I may as well get paid for it. So of course, Sam Houston is in Huntsville, Texas. Everybody pretty much knows Huntsville, because it's pretty much like the prison capital of Texas. So literally in the back door of the criminal justice building is the parking lot for the criminal justice building. And then right behind that is the prison. Okay. So it was called the Walls Unit. It still is. So literally you just walk down the hill and you're at the prison. So there's like 7 or 8 other units in that area. So I was like, well, they're always up here recruiting. I may as well go to work there. So I ended up, working at the prison because I was like, let me make sure this is the field I want to stay in. So one of the things that really changed it for me is when I worked at the prison, just seeing number one, the number of Black men that were incarcerated. And I
Yeah.
was at one of the larger units. So there was about 3,500 um, men on that unit. And out of that 3,500, I mean, it was like about 70% were Black. And I was
Yes.
like, wow, this is a shame that we have, this many, Black men locked up. And so, I would talk to them, and just, ask them, well, what happened? How'd you get here? And sad to say, a lot of them, wrong place, wrong time with the wrong people. I mean, when you looked at, their charges, read the police reports, there was so many holes and gaps in it. And so there are a lot of men, I mean, sitting in prison, and a lot of our, younger boys sitting in juvenile, detention, who they are very smart individuals. They have a lot of potential. Yes, but they made some wrong decisions. But there's also the ones there too that truly are innocent. And that was one of the things why I wanted to stay in the field, because I was like, we do have, our Black men and our Black boys, they are being locked up at rates that are like just exponential. And a lot of times it is just because of color. And so, in my praying and me asking, God, where do you need me to be? He has always kept me in that field doing something. So I worked at the prison for about 6.5 years. Then I left. I was paralegal. And then I went to go teach. So I taught criminal justice for a while. And then I was like, okay, I really want to get back into the field and work. So at that time, of course, I went to grad school to start my doctorate degree. So when I got done with that, I worked at the public defender's office for Dallas County. And again, there, I mean, came across the same thing. I worked in the mental health division. So all of our clients, were dealing with some mental health issues. But one of the things we did was we worked to keep them out of jail and prison. And it was because a lot of them did have, mental issues that had never been addressed. Some it was just, they, got off their meds. So at least we had some judges that said, there's no point in us sending this person to jail or prison when he can
Right.
stay in the community and get help. And so that
Yes.
was one of the things that I, really liked about that job, is that we got to keep, these men, a lot of them were younger men, anywhere between 17, and 30 years old. A lot of them got to stay in their community. They got the help that they needed. I mean, we helped them, with jobs, places to stay, just making sure they were connected, with the right, resources. And a lot of them have done very well. So they're no longer in the system for
That's
that
good.
program. They put them on deferred adjudication probation. So they have no convictions, which is great, for them. So still able to go out, and get a job. I mean, we had people, other judges that were coming in, like giving them, scholarships and things like that. So it was, really great. And that's, the way it's going. So hopefully we'll keep up that trend and see that. And then my last job was working at Dallas County Juvenile. So I decided to switch over to helping the kids, because the youth is definitely the population that my heart goes out to, because a lot of them just don't have role models and really good guidance. And so I saw that as an opportunity to at least, work with the youth. They're a little bit more flexible. And if we give them the guidance and, knowledge and skills and tools they need, then we can do a lot of work with them. And in that way, hopefully we can, keep them out of the system and getting, keep them from getting caught up in the system. Because once they get in, it's very difficult for them to get out. So now a lot of my work is focused on youth and how, to give them what they need to make it in this world, so they can make, better decisions. They'll have better problem solving skills, better, coping skills. They can regulate their emotions, and not get caught up and end up being in the system. And they have all this potential that they need to be out here in the world using.
Wow. Oh, wow. Good. Great, great. Oh, man. I love that. Um, when you begin to share that with me, I was like, oh, wow, we definitely have some like passions and some like focuses. So you have sisters, mothers, grandmothers, aunts that are watching. What do you say to them, Stacy, to encourage them, even if they find themselves having a son, a nephew, a brother, a father, a husband that's in the system? What do you say to them that have someone in the system? Or what words of encouragement would you share with women who are watching? Because we're talking about them birthing things, but it's something different when the thing that you birth and that has all this promise, you see that particular person, not thing, but this person now locked up in a way. How do you encourage women? How do you keep them focused? What would you say to them to give them hope, in a tough situation like this?
So in tough situations like that, one is, and I have worked, with a number of, families. I mean, from the grandmothers to the mothers to the aunts, to the sisters, and they've got somebody that's dealing with the system or in the system. So one thing I tell them is number one, always pray because God can work things out. And I know in those situations to have a family member, incarcerated, in jail, in prison, not knowing what's going on from day to day, a lot of stuff goes through your mind. Of course, I've been on the inside, so I know, how it is. It's, not as bad as some people think. But, if you've never been in that environment, you don't know. You just hear about all the negative stuff. So I do tell them, don't listen to all the negative stuff. Make sure that you are praying for, the husband, the brother, the nephew, the son, whomever it is. Make sure you're keeping them covered in prayer because they do go through a lot when they are in the system. To make sure that they're, checking up on them because they need a lot of support in there. I mean, I met men that they were like, I didn't have anybody outside. I got locked up and now I don't have anybody, and then you got other men, they're getting the visits, mom is coming, grandmother's coming, wife is coming, kids are coming. So they're doing a lot better. But just to make sure that, if he does end up going to jail and prison, keep communication open with him, take the phone calls, write the letters, make sure that they are checking up on them and giving them the support that they need. Because a lot of them, when they get there, their family just forgets about them. It's like out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, well, he's still alive, he's still here. But just having that support, that does a lot, for them. If it is a situation where maybe he took a plea, 'cause there's a lot of, people like they take pleas, they put them under pressure, they take the plea, but he's saying I didn't do it, but once I got in there, they were like, if you go to trial, you're going to get all these years. So I just went in and took the plea, encourage them. If they did not do that offense, do not take a plea, tell him to say, no, 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 because they got to, prove it. Because I've seen too many men and boys, they're in juvenile detention or they're in prison and it's because they took a plea and they didn't even do it. Okay. So I tell them, look, if you did not do it, say you did not do it, stand your ground, go to trial, let them prove it. Because a lot of times, they don't want to do their work. A lot of them get the, public defenders who work, of course, for the government. And they're just like, oh, just go ahead and plea out, take the time. But I'm like, that public defender does not have to do your time.
Absolutely.
You do. So if you didn't do it, say you didn't do it. And the families, just to make sure, that they're talking to those, attorneys, judges and anybody else. Okay. Just so hopefully we'll see a lot of those situations decrease. Right. And I would say the last thing is for women to take care of themselves in that situation. Like you were saying, women, they wear a lot of hats. We have, a lot of roles. Typically in the Black community, we're the backbones of the family.
Absolutely.
So women, just to make sure that they are taking care of themselves, that, they're getting the help that they need. There are actually a lot of organizations, a lot of groups out there that they will take care of families, that have someone incarcerated. So, they can, get with them. They have the support groups, which I'm so happy to see, because it just lets the families know, well, hey, we're going to be here, to support you, on the outside. And then also, too, they can connect them with other resources that they may need to help out, their loved one that is incarcerated.
Yeah, that's great information. I know sometimes or many times when it happens, it's just all hope is lost. It's like, well, this is the end. There's nothing I can do. They have the sentence. They're gonna have to be in there that time, and it's nothing that we can do. And one of the things, if you follow this podcast, it's definitely faith-based. We definitely believe in the power of prayer, right? And we definitely believe in God's word, right? And I want to encourage some mother, some sister that's watching. We all make mistakes. Unfortunately, some of the mistakes we make, especially as relates to men, sometimes it ends us up in those situations. But I will say this, maybe it doesn't sound good, but it's the truth. The New Testament that we read is from a man who had Christians killed. Paul, they killed Christians. Paul was there when they killed Stephen. He was known for killing Christians. When you look throughout, there were many people in the Bible that were murderers, and God, they got a second chance. Moses was a murderer, right?
Mhm.
David, as powerful as David was, God calls David a man after his own heart. But David was directly responsible for the death of Uriah. So we see it throughout the scripture, redemption. And so if God did it then, he can do it now. So I don't want you to don't cast your hope away. Don't throw your hope away. We're gonna believe, and we're gonna believe while they're in there that whatever changes that need to be made has to be made. I thought it would be impossible to do a podcast on talking about purpose. And then one of the purposes of being a woman is to bear children and have children. And there's nothing worse than having your child taken away from you. And so we want to have a balanced podcast. And I really want to encourage you. You may find yourself in this season trying to figure it out. We have a guest on here who this has been pretty much her life work. She's been around it. She's been in it, and she's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So also, Stacey, I want you to encourage the viewer on, what happens when he comes home. What's the expectation, and how can you help him? What are some things you can do to help him move forward? Well, he or she. But how do we help them, Stacey, when they come home? How do we make sure that they don't go back, that the chain is really broken and broken for good? What would you say to them, Stacey, Dr. Page?
Okay. So I would say one, just make sure that when he or she is getting ready to be released, that they have a plan even before they walk out of the building. Typically, they do have individuals inside the prisons, that will ask them, who are they going to live with, what are they expecting to do, things like that. We have a lot of programs now that will actually start while they are inside. So one of the things they're doing at a lot of the prisons is the faith-based dorms. So they actually have, the faith-based, volunteers that go in, and they start working with them prior to their release. And so for the women, the grandmothers, the moms, sisters, whomever. So just making sure that he or she has a plan. Where are they going to stay once they come home? Of course, they got to have somewhere to stay. If they're going to be on parole, seeing where, the closest office is, things like that, making sure they're going to have, the transportation to get there. And then just making sure that everything, as much as possible, I would say, is going to be arranged for them when they get home. I mean, we know there's some things that just won't. So, like,
Right.
there's some people that come out with jobs already. Other ones, they may not have a job. So even just, while he or she is still there, kind of start asking around, saying, hey, who employs, there are a lot of businesses now that they will actually, hire offenders. We do have a lot of reentry organizations out there, typically in the larger cities, Dallas, Houston. We have a lot of reentry organizations that they work with the families, and they also work with the offenders, when they get back out into society, because we know once they re-enter, they, are going to have those challenges, of,
Right.
getting a job and things like that. And then also too, just helping them stay away from the people, places, and things that they do not need to be around. Because we
Right.
know, when they get out, they're excited. It's like, I'm home. I want to go see my boy. I want to go see my girl. Well, your boy or girl might not be changed yet. So just, letting them know, hey, this is not, the best place, for you to go. These are not the best people, for you to hang around, and really just keeping them in the positive environment so that they won't get tempted. Yeah, they are still going to do with it. But what I found in just all my work is the more support they have from, family, friends, other people, out there, the better that they do. Typically, what I've seen just from my experience is the ones that, they don't really have, the family and, people there to support them. They're the ones that end up, getting caught back up. but
Right.
just definitely, helping them and giving them as much support, as you can, staying positive, like you were saying, definitely, stay hopeful because the help is out there. And then just being there to let that person know, you still love them. Yeah, they're going to get out, they're still going to mess up. I mean, we all do, but just knowing that, they got to keep going. And of course, God, will open up those doors and give them the breakthroughs that they need.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Great information. Um, I want to talk to someone who's watching and they're listening to you and they're saying, well, I want to do something similar in life. It may not be specifically what you're doing, Dr. Page, but there are some things that are alike, right? And I want to take some time now. We talked about your upbringing in the beginning, and talk about you being raised in a Christian home. I think sometimes too, when you talk about birthing things and becoming um, what you're meant to be on your destiny track, I think it also has to go back to what influence and things that have impacted your life. So I want to ask you a few questions to help the viewer. You and I have talked, but I want to help the viewer be able to have some indicators in life, because we want people walking away saying, okay, I can do this. I can be better at this. Like, what steps can I take? Like, what information can I use? So I think I'm big on inspiration and being motivated. And when I think about my life, I call them locker rooms. And so in those locker rooms, God was always faithful to have individuals in those locker rooms who I could draw inspiration from, who could help me, or they did things in seasons that I now draw from. So when I think about you and I look at all that you're doing, Stacey, tell me three women who inspired you or who inspire you now.
Okay. So, three women that inspire me. One would be my mother, Clara Page. Um,
Absolutely.
my mother, she is like the epitome of a Christian woman. I can only pray that I'm half the woman in this lifetime that she's in. But my mother has really inspired me. My mother is a strong Christian woman. She has been through a lot. Even just growing up, I saw my mom, go through stuff. When I was probably 4 or 5, my dad he worked for the railroad. And so he ended up getting hurt, on the job. And I remember the day, like my mom, got the call that he had been rushed, to the hospital. Dad was in the hospital like 6 weeks, got out. He was off work for probably almost a year, excuse me, dealing, with his injuries and healing. But my mom never missed a beat. I mean,
Mm.
like I saw my mom shed a few tears that day when she got that phone call. And from that day on, I mean, like my mother was on it. At that time, she was a stay-at-home mom. So she was like, hey, your dad's gonna be at home with y'all now while, he's healing. I gotta go to work. So my
Wow.
mom, got full-time job at the library. And, she like just kept going. And I mean, of course, when I got older, I was like, well, mom, how did you do it? You had 4 kids, your husband's in the hospital, you're working full time, you still came home, cooked dinner, washed clothes, ironed clothes, did all that. And she was like, it was only God. So I saw my mom just, go through those things. And I, have seen how strong she's, been in life, and she's had other stuff happen. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer twice, so the first time, she called, and this was back in 2010. So she called and she was like, well, I have some news. And she was like, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And, I'm over here like about to fall out. And she's like, I need you to calm down. My mom was very calm when she told me, but she was like, I'll be fine. She's like, I've already prayed, I'm definitely going to have the surgery and, have to have radiation and all that. But she's like, I know God will heal me, and I mean, I saw other people get diagnosed with breast cancer and they fell apart, but my
Mm.
mother did not. She healed from that. About 2 or 3 years later, got, diagnosed again, of the breast. And I mean, same thing, So I saw my mom handle that with a lot of strength. And I mean, she was always hopeful. She was always, optimistic. But one thing my mom is like, she's never given up. I mean, like she deals with it, she keeps going, and that's what she always taught me. Second woman would be Michelle Obama. So she was our first African American first lady. So just to be able to witness that in our lifetime, I will say that until Barack Obama became president, I didn't really think, we'd ever see that. But of course we did. So for me, she is definitely like a very graceful woman, a hardworking woman. I have her books. I've, read her story. Every time she's on TV, I'm right there tuning in or recording it. But just to see everything she's gone through, and then how she handled being the first lady. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes we didn't even know about, and like she never even talked about these things until they were done. um, with the presidency and Barack, had left, and she talked about all the things that they faced, the racism, the discrimination, but yet and still, like she never showed any of that. Like she was never negative. Yes, she spoke on it, but she was always positive, and uplifting, just a genuine, down to earth person. So just to know her story and her history, that really inspires me. Third one would be our current Vice President, Kamala Harris. So just seeing a Black woman in that role, that is definitely, exciting, because it does let, Black women know that we can hold those seats. We don't always just, have to be, um, in the background. I mean, we can actually become vice president now, and who knows, maybe president, one day. But she's definitely opened up the door for a lot of women to know, as long, as they keep working, that we can make it to those higher places. So we do have, these Black women out here like Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, you know, Oprah, Issa Rae. We have these women that they have opened up the doors for us, and they're paving the way. So I'm just definitely thankful that, we have some really good Black female role models that are really inspiring. And they're letting us, Black women know that, the sky's the limit. We just got to get in there, we got to work for it, and it'll happen.
Wow, that's good. What what would be a pivotal moment in life that changed everything for you, Dr. Page?
Um, so the pivotal thing in my life that changed it for me was in 2002 when my dad passed away. So my dad passed away from a heart attack. I had just seen my dad 2 days before. He came up on the weekend to visit, stayed in my house. He was dealing with some health challenges. He was doing better. I got a good doctor's report. And him and my mom went back home that Sunday, talked to my dad on Tuesday, and then he had a heart attack on Wednesday. And of course, I'm like, well, Lord, my dad was doing better, had just been to the doctor, got a good report. How does this happen? So it was, just really, traumatic and shocking. So, I was, had a hard time dealing with that because, of course, I was a daddy's girl, went everywhere, with my dad. My dad did everything for me. He could do no wrong in my eyes. So that was really one of the turning points in my life, because I saw, like how quick your life can change, in a moment. And, to lose, a dad who was, a great father, took care of us, great role model, taught us all of that. That was very, difficult for me. And at that time, I was 27 years old. So I hadn't been in the world, too long. And of course, for me, I would just always think about, my dad is no longer here. So, I can't just pick up the phone and be like, oh, Dad, hey, tell me how to do this, what do I do? So that was kind of a pivotal point in my life. At that time, I was in grad school at University of Phoenix working on my master's degree. And at that time, I wanted to quit, because I was like, Mom, I talked to my mom about it, and I was like, it's a lot right now trying to deal, with death of dad. I was like, I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I'm like, I don't want to be failing out of school. And I remember my mom saying, what would your dad want you to do? I was like, stay in school and finish, because he told me not to stop, no matter how hard it got. She was like, well, that's your answer. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So at that point in time, I had probably about 6 months of school left, a couple of semesters left. I will say that was probably the hardest 6 months of my life. And at that point, I wasn't doing it for myself anymore. I was really doing it for my dad, because my dad was like, don't ever give up. He was like, I'm not going to always be here, but he was like, you have to keep going no matter what, So I made sure, that I finished up the degree, because I knew that, would make my dad proud. I knew my dad, was looking down on me. When it came time for graduation, I was like, I'm not walking. My dad's not going to be able to be there. And my mom was like, um, but if your dad were here still, he would be there. So she's like, he can still see you, from heaven. So I think, you should go ahead, you should walk, should graduate. So again, decided to do that, but did it for my dad, just to make my dad proud and let him know that everything that he taught me, I was, still going to use it, even though, he was no longer, here on earth to actually see it. So I would say that was one of the turning points in my life, where God just showed me, well, I can get you through anything, even though you feel like you can't do it. I'm going to, push you through, and you just keep praying to me, and I will help you get to the end.
Wow, that's powerful. I love it. Dr. Page, what would you say? What in life challenges you to be better?
Um, so one is, my family challenges me to be better.
Mm-hmm.
We're a type of family where, we're always, wanting to grow, and do better. So definitely my family. But overall, my purpose in life, that challenges me to be better, because I know that God has put me in the roles he has, being a therapist, being a professor, being a life coach to help other people. And so for me, just knowing that I still have to continue to learn, and to grow, because I'm helping other people, so I need to make sure in the process I'm, definitely moving up, I'm learning new things, because I need all of this, knowledge and skills to help other
Right.
people. So for me, just always, learning, being, a better person, because I know ultimately whatever it is I go through, whatever it is I learn, God is using that so that I can help somebody else. And, there's been a lot of times I'm like, I pray and I'm like, well, Lord, I work with people, and a lot of times I don't know what to say to them. I don't, know how to help them, but I pray. And God, will always say, okay, you were in this situation, or you knew somebody that was. So use that. So he's just shown me that he's always going to prepare me, even when I think I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to tell these people. God always comes through, so he'll remind me, oh, you've done this, or you've experienced that. So in me going through, my own challenges and experiences, I'm able to use those to help other people.
Wow. I hope that you listening to this podcast today. I wanted to have this discussion with Dr. Page, my friend Stacy, to show you that life is really like a gumbo. It has some of everything in it. But I promise you, if you begin to mix it all together and you put the time element on it, you will get to a place in life where God will use your life and serve it to others, and it will be something good for them to partake of. And I think you heard that through Stacy's story today. All of the things, and obviously we hadn't talked about everything, but just the things that she shared, her journey, the different things. I didn't know the story about her dad. She shared that today. I think when you find out what makes up a person, it helps you and encourages you that, man, yeah, there's hope for me. And so I know there are a lot of great things happening for women in this time, and I celebrate them. But then we still see that there's a huge gap, and there are women that are really doing everything that they can to be all that they can be. And I just thought it'd be great if we could just have the conversation and let's help some people. It's about making us better. I have truly enjoyed our time today, Dr. Page. And for those watching, trust me, this will not be our last time. I know that she and I are going to partner together to do some things, not only to help our community, but just work to bring about change in different areas of life. Um, when you think about what happened with the civil rights movement and those that came before us, we're able to sit here and have a podcast and discuss these things. That only happens because somebody cared enough, and not just cared enough through words and thoughts, they put action to it. So I'm excited about our relationship, this friendship, and the things that we're going to be doing together. Before we get off of here, I know you have an organization. I want you to talk about your organization, Stacy, and share with people. Tell them what you're doing. Give them your website, your social media, where they can find that organization. Maybe partner with you and help you in your endeavors. If you could share that, I think that would be great as well.
Okay. So I do have a business. So it's called Serenity Insight. So what I do in my business is I do life coaching and I also do empowerment. So through that, primarily just doing a lot of speaking engagements. I do life coaching with individuals. So anybody that needs any type of coaching in life, I am their go-to person. I also do workshops. Most of my workshops, they do focus on self-esteem and self-confidence. The majority of the workshops I've done have been with women and girls. So, of course, women and girls are near and dear to my heart. So I'm a woman, so I can definitely, relate to them, help them, give them some advice and guidance. So I am in the process right now of reorganizing my business so we can do some bigger and better things. I actually have two of my colleagues who are also doctors. They're African American females. So they're partnering with me. So we're doing some reorganization with that because, they have some expertise areas that I don't have. And so I was like, oh, I can bring them alongside me and we'll pretty much have, everything covered. Right now, as far as social media, they can find me on Instagram. It's under Dr. SP Sadi. So if you just put in Stacy Page, it'll pull me up. They can follow me there. We're doing some work on our website right now. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll have the website up and running. Once we get that up and running, I'll definitely send that over to you so people can connect. If anybody does, want to reach out to me now, you are more than welcome to give them my contact information, and that
Absolutely.
way they can reach out to them.
Great, great. We're doing the same thing, Stacy. We're updating our website and doing some things, but once it's done, your information is definitely going to be on there where they can click it and get in contact with you. I think this was a great, great time today. And like I said before, hopefully, the viewer is going to be tough. It's going to cost you something.
Yeah.
And I promise you, there is no epidural for this, right? If you want an epidural, have a baby and you can get it that way. But if you're talking about your destiny, what purpose God has for you, there's no epidural for it. But you can birth it. We have a guest on today that has birthed multiple things. And not only has she birthed multiple things, she's been proficient in her life, in her career, with helping others recalibrate and helping them birth things. So, man, I so appreciate you, sis. And I can't wait for the next podcast. And know this too. Once you guys get things together with Cincy, your business, we're going to partner with you as well. And then I want to say, I want to shout you out and say thank you. We're having our Hope Symposium in this Sunday. I mean, not this Sunday, this summer, July the 17th. If you're in Palestine, Texas, please go out to Eventbrite, type in Hope Symposium, register. The registration is free. I want to shout out Cincy, her organization. They have partnered with us. So thank you so much for your partnership, your prayers, and your support. We do appreciate you guys partnering with us. I don't have anything else. Stacy, no, I love to talk. I could definitely have some other questions on here, but this has been great. And if you have any questions, if you're saying, hey, she says some things, she shares some things, let's connect. I would encourage you, don't wait. Whatever things are pondering in your heart, let's step out on them get the help, find out. Stacy, she'd be more than happy. Dr. Page would be more than happy to help you or point you in the direction. So let's definitely get the help. As we always say here, Stacy, it's strength for today. It's all about sustenance for tomorrow. And no matter who you are in life, all of us are in need of a new balance sooner or later. It's your boy, your potential conditioner, H2O. Thank you for viewing. We'll see you when you see you. Peace.